Accountants Association, and we are about to commence a very important seminar, a 2-hour VCM on reassessment under Section 148, the new scheme that has come, the new Section 148 capital A that has also come. And we have with us none other than C.A. Ramesh Kumar Patodia, who is a master in the subject. In fact, he was in the executive committee of the Association of Corporate Advisors and Executives and many other bodies also. But when he was in the Association of Corporate Advisors and Executives, he had brought out a research paper. It was a book on reassessment, which we have kept it in our desk also. So whenever we need to refer anything, we always refer to that book, and he is the right person to discuss about this subject. Before Devan, you also speak a few words on the VCM programs that our study circle is going to conduct and has conducted. A little introduction on the subject. I would like to say that Rameshji, now since assessment year 13-14 notices are also coming, because the due date has been extended to 30th of June 2021, because it was supposed to end on 31st March 2020. They extended it to 1 year. Then they extended it to 30th April and then to 30th June 2021. In the meantime, 14-15 assessment years are also coming, because the normal time has come for 14-15 assessment years also to come. And since the new law has come from 1/4/2021, that is 148 capital A, where you cannot reopen beyond 3 years if there is no investment in asset or if there is no undisclosed income above 50 lakhs, so that if you cannot reopen between 3 to 10 years, so that way assessment year 15-16, 16-17 and 17-18 also is required to be opened by the 30th of June 2021. If my understanding is correct, I don't know, you will be able to clarify further. And in the process, what is happening is now both the laws are in force now, because that 148 capital A is now in force from 1st April 2021, and the old law also has got extended till 30th June 2021. So we are faced with a situation where 5 assessment years at one go are actually can be reopened. Assessment year 13-14, 14-15, 15-16, 16-17, as well as 17-18. So whether the operation of both the laws at the same point of time is something which is permissible or not from some other angles, because you always try to dissect a section or a statute by using other statutes also. We have seen that in your earlier lectures. You always do that. You quote other laws also, and you try to arrive at a conclusion as to whether both the laws can be in place at the same time. The point is that that assessment year 17-18, which is the demonetization year actually, because all the returns after demonetization were filed for assessment year 17-18, that has also been reopened. So we would like to and one more thing which is most important is that reason to believe has been substituted with information technology, with information that is in possession of the department under 285 BA. And they also speak of if there is any audit objection by CAG, then that will also be taken into consideration. So all these new issues have also come up. So we would like to have a threadbare discussion on that, and you are the best person to do it in the light of judicial pronouncements also. So with these small introduction of the topic that we are going to discuss for the next 2 hours, it's over to Devan to speak about the study circle activities. Only one thing, Rameshji, you can speak straight away. The questions will come in. I'm requesting everyone to post those questions in the chat box actually. Yeah? So after you have finished your deliberation, you can take the questions one by one. Devan is going to moderate the questions so that everyone is satisfied with whatever topic, whatever is is required to be discussed and understood under section 148. And now it is over to Devan to carry on the proceedings and take it forward. Yes. Thank
am
you.
I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So a very good morning to everyone. And I would like to mention a few things before we start. First of all, there is no need for mentioning your name and membership number in the chat box. So it's better that whenever you have a question, you mention that in the chat box so that we can easily manage them. One. Second thing is that the next, we have already planned 2 more study circle programs. The first one is on the recent amendments in GST. That is tomorrow, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So once this program is over, we will launch the same. The next program would be in the same time on 2nd June. That would be on input tax credit relating to GST. We are also planning another program in the next Sunday in the morning. Once it would be on the Companies Act, recent amendments. So we are yet to plan it properly. Once we do that, we will launch it. Coming to today's program, there is nothing that I need to mention. Only being the secretary of EIRC, I would mention one thing, that friends, since there are 18,000 members, 40,000 students, the vaccination process would be a big thing. And what we are trying to do at EIRC is to tie up with as many hospitals as possible. And we have also approached the state government so that they can include us in the priority list. That would be a big help for the fraternity. And soon we would be launching a Google form where we would like to know if you are willing to get vaccinated through the tie-ups that we are doing. This will help us to give the government the data as to how many people need the vaccination. So with this note, I do not think we should waste any more time. Shall we go straight into the topic? Okay. So Ramesh sir has already been introduced by the president of the Salt Lake City Chartered Accountants Association. So I would request Ramesh sir to please start the proceedings of today's program on reassessment. Sir, you have to unmute yourself, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. Please. Thank you.
Audible to all?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Sumantroda, my good friend, president of the association. Mr. Devayan Patro, energetic secretary of EIRC. Very good friends from profession, Sanjay Da, I can see, Nilimaji, other good friends on the, I can see, and respected senior members of the profession, fellow chartered accountants, young boys, ladies and gentlemen. Before I start my deliberations on the topic, friends, which is an evergreen topic and will remain evergreen, I think, because if you see the history of income tax, the 1922 Act is going to come 100 years, and I do not find any single ITR. We are now, I think, running 440 ITR. You will not have a single ITR which doesn't have at least 5-7 cases on reassessment. And I bow down to Dr. Devi Prasad Pal, friends, who recently left for heavenly abode, and with whom I had the occasion to work very closely for at least 5 years, friends, who was a master in 148, I will say, who must have argued not less than 10,000 cases on 148 itself. And I had the opportunity to get lot of learning from him on this particular topic, friends. I will try to share whatever I have had the occasion to learn from him, and as well as whatever I have learned during the course of myself having written a book when I was with Association of Corporate Advisors and Executives, Complete Guide on Reassessment, friends. I would also cover the burning point of limitation which is there in the mind of everybody, that can the two, as Sumantra pointed out, can two parallel statutes run together? So now the assessing officer is issuing notice under section 148 of the Income Tax Act. He has to then differentiate the notice that it is under the old 148 and it is now under the new 148. You will be left, you will be asking a question to yourself unless it is clarified in the notice itself. So friends, prior to the topic for today is analysis of changes in the statute relating to reassessment by the Finance Act of 2020. So prior to discussing the changes, first I will briefly touch upon what was the statute prior to the changes, friends. The law, as all of us know, provided that assessing officer can issue notice up to 6 years. The basic time limit for issuance of notice was 6 years, where also there were two kind of limitations. So first window was 4 years, second was 4 to 6 years. If the income escaping assessment was within 1 lakh, then the window was only 4 years. If the income was above 1 lakh, then the window was 6 years. And in case the income escaping assessment involved foreign income or foreign assets, then the window was 16 years. And in certain cases of search and seizure, there was additional window of 10 years under the earlier law also. And under the earlier law, for the purpose of issuing notice under section 148, it was provided in the law that the assessing officer must have the reason to believe before he could have issued the notice to the assessee. He was required to record the reasons in writing, and in some cases the reasons were required to be approved by his higher authority under section 151 of the Income Tax Act. And in case the reassessment was done after 4 years, then if the original assessment was completed under section 143(3) of the Income Tax Act, that is a scrutiny assessment, in that case, unless there was any omission or failure to disclose fully and truly all material facts necessary for the assessment, the assessing officer could not have issued the notice under section 148. So under the earlier law, in case the notice was issued beyond 4 years but up to 6 years, and the original assessment was under section 143(3), then he must have recorded in the notice in the regions that there was an omission or failure on part of the assessee to disclose fully and truly. If he did not do so, then there are a number of court cases which has held that the notice was bad in law. Then friends, under the earlier law, there were certain deemed cases of escapement of income, that the income will be deemed to have escaped the assessment. In certain cases, where say if the return was required to be filed, if you have not filed a return of income, and then it was a deemed case of escapement. And there were other deemed cases of escapement also. So basically friends, this was briefly the provision which was there in existence under the earlier law. Now what has happened is, by the Finance Act of 2021, there has been some sections which has been substituted, like section 147, 148, 149. These sections have been substituted. And 148A is a new section which has been inserted. These are the substitutions which were done. And prior to this, friends, I will take you to the taxation ordinance which was pronounced in the month of September 2020. whereby section 151A was brought into the statute book. 151A was brought as precursor to the faceless reassessment, friends, because by virtue of section 151A, the government took upon itself the power to pronounce a scheme for faceless reassessment, because all of you know that as far as the faceless assessment or appeals etc. is concerned, it is not applicable for reassessment, because obviously the reasons were obvious, that the law provided for reasons to be recorded, reason to believe, and in case of a faceless kind of a mechanism, there were trouble in dealing with the law which existed at that time, friends. So 151A was enacted in the month of September 2020 with effect from, I think, 1st of November 2020, and thereafter from 1st of April 2021, this Finance Act of 2021 amended the provisions relating to reassessment. What are the changes which has been made, friends? Let us discuss the changes. The important change which has been made, first change is regarding the time limit, friends. Under the earlier law, as I just now told you, that there were time limit of 4 years to 16 years. Now the time limit is 10 years. Maximum time limit is 10 years only, whether it is a foreign asset or it is an Indian asset. That dichotomy, that differentiation has been done away with. So beyond 10 years, friends, there cannot be any reassessment. You can have a wonderful sleep if 10 years have passed. And for those friends who complain that how you can allow 10 years up, the reassessment up to 10 years, I have a little soft corner with the department here, friends. Because if you read the law in United Kingdom, the UK law allows 20 years reassessment. Discovery assessment they call. There it is 2 decades. And friends, if you go to America, there is no time limit there for reassessment if it is due to fraud or misrepresentation. They can even dig the grave and bring him to reassessment. So friends, we should be happy that as far as limitation is concerned, under the Indian law, they have reduced the window to 10 years from 16 years. So we should be happy and rejoicing. That is my personal view, friends. No reason to complain. Within 10 years window also, friends, 2 windows are provided. First is 3 years and second is 3 years to 10 years. Two windows are there now. Now, what are those 2 windows, friends? Here the provision says that the assessing officer, in pursuance of information, he can do if there is a escapement of income in pursuance of information, then he can issue the notice under section 148. Here, friends, the law has taken one full circle, I will say. Because if you see the 1922 Act, section 34 of the Income Tax Act, which is pari materia to section 147, had this word information in this section 34. So that is why I say the law has taken full circle. And now information word has come into the statute. What is the meaning of the word information, friends? The law does not define information. The provisions does not say what is the meaning of information. It only says that information as flagged in accordance with the risk management strategy laid down by the authorities. We'll come to that. However, friends, here, as far as information is concerned, I could find a very old 1946 case of Allahabad High Court as reported in 14 ITR page 431. Allahabad High Court in the context of 1922 Act, friends, Allahabad High Court said that information means something more than a gossip or rumor. And it went on to say that it must lead to discovery or belief, and then so on and so forth. So friends, the information must be there in accordance with the risk management strategy, and all of us are anticipating that the risk management strategy of the CBDT will flag the information. Like what kind of information can be flagged? I'm just anticipating. Say, suppose if you are supposed to file the return of income and you have not filed the return, then there will be a red flag in the data that look, Mr. Patodia has not filed the return of income for these years, and we have the information, because nowadays, you know, the department has more information than what you even have yourself about yourself. The way social media we are, every minute we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we post everything, whatever may be. If I am going to buy vegetables, I am posting I am at the lake market buying vegetables. If I am buying sweets, I will post I am at Balaram Malik buying sweets on the Facebook. So department in fact has more information about you, friends. And the way department is becoming now smart. Gone are the days when you had to go to the Aikar Bhavan, sit before the assessing officer for 3 hours for waiting for your turn, and you were aggrieved that look, I have been called at 12 noon, but I have been given hearing at 3 p.m. It is gone are those days. Now we are doing hearing sitting in the chamber. We are filing the return. So department has become smart. They don't want to waste your time, neither do they want to waste their own time also. They say whatever we must utilize our time also properly. And out of 55,000 cases which has been done in faceless, selected in faceless assessment, friends, the Honorable FM has gone on record that only 1,500 cases where the additions were made. Only 1,500 cases throughout the country in which additions were made, which were subjected to. So those are the only cases which could be subjected to appeal. So department is also becoming smarter. They want to take the maximum advantage of the digital technology risk, and in accordance with that, the information which they will be getting, say that I have not filed the return, then they will have the information. Look, I have received interest from such and such bank, but I have not filed my return. If I have got certain income, if I have spent huge amount of expenditure, or if I have claimed any deduction, if I have made any donation, department is getting information on your sources of income as well as sources of expenditure. Then there are certain mandatory information gathering mechanism whereby department is getting information from the, say, bankers, from the registrar of properties, and from other authorities. So those information will be utilized for the purpose of finding out that whether you were required to file your return of income, number one, or whether you were, if you have filed the return of income, whether your return of income has been filed in accordance with the data which is available on the with the department. That will be matched. If the information is matched, then that is not an information. But if there is any variance, then that will most probably be information in accordance with the risk management strategy, which will give powers to the assessing officer to activate the process of reassessment by issuing the notice under section 148. And second, this is one reason which can be on which notice can be issued. Second is, as Sumantruda also pointed out, that if there is a final audit objection by CAG that income has not been computed in accordance with the Income Tax Act, then that would also lead to issuance of notice. Here, friends, all of us know that there are Supreme Court decisions in respect of the earlier law, as pronounced, say 119 ITR, we know Indian Express and Newspaper Society's case, or PBS Bidhi's case, where Supreme Court has said that CAG's audit on a objection on a point of law cannot be a subject, cannot be lead to issuance of notice under section 148. That Supreme Court decision is there. So to some extent, that those decisions are diluted. To some extent, I am saying it's not that the CAG's audit objection on every point can lead the assessing officer is still under the new law, in my opinion, to issue a notice under section 148. Because suppose assessing officer has is it okay? I am audible?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes.
So
You
if
mute the other side. Take it.
the assessing officer has, say, allowed you a deduction or based on certain parameters, based on his understanding of the law, and CAG auditors say that no, deduction was not allowable because according to us, this is the way the law should be interpreted. I think still the judgment of 19 ITR will apply here. That cannot be a ground for reassessment even under the new law, in my opinion. So friends, these two rather can be the reasons for issuance of notice under the new law. I am repeating, first is information and second is the audit CAG's final opinion. They have written the word final opinion. So unless it is a final opinion, I am again putting stress. The may give you a note that look, this is the audit objection which has come. You give your reply. If you give your reply and the audit party is satisfied, then it is okay. If they don't accept and say that no, this is our final audit objection, then that can be a ground, friends. So now, having understood that what can be the reasons for reopening under the new law, now friends, as far as time limitation of 3 year and 10 year is concerned, that the first window of 3 years is available in respect, which is available with the department, which leads to a conclusion that there has been an escapement of income. So up to 3 years, the window can be availed by the department. But the second window of 10 years, that is after 3 years but up to 10 years, can be availed only when income has escaped assessment based on the evidence in the form of books of accounts, document or other evidence available with the department and represented by the assets. It says represented by the assets. And what is the meaning of represented by the assets? The explanation to the section says that asset includes, it says asset includes, I think, some cash. Let me read from the section itself. It says, for the purpose of clause B of this subsection, assets shall include immovable property, being land or building or both, shares and securities, loans and advances, deposit in bank account. So friends, it doesn't say cash. That does not mean that as cash is not an asset, because the definition is an inclusive definition. It says asset includes, and as all of us know, inclusive definition is always a possible of expansion. It can include anything which may not have been written here. It must be asset in these forms or in some other form. Here let me clarify, friends, that since the window of 3 years to 10 years is available only if it is represented by the assets as the law says, can it not be taken to mean that unless the income which has escaped has assessment represents some form of asset, maybe what is written here or may not be written here, then only the window of 10 years can be availed? I think definitely so, friends. And I was just thinking that suppose if you have spent any amount, say on a foreign trip after 3 years, say you have spent 10 lakhs on a foreign trip, and the assessing of that trip was not disclosed by you in your return of income, and it came to the notice of the assessing officer after 3 years, then can he issue the notice under section 148 to you that from where you got this amount, from where you got this money to spend? Strictly going by the wordings of the provision, friends, since it is not represented by any asset as understood, I think that it will not be within his competence to issue the notice under section 148 in those cases, because one can argue that it is not represented by any asset, and the law requires, because the law has been tight, though it has been 10 years window has been made, but at the same time the legislature wants that there has to be some finality, and that finality they have kept the 3 years window very wide, but 3 to 10 years window is not that wide, I will say, friends. This is the way I interpret. Now, friends, let us go to section 148A of the Income Tax Act. Under the earlier law, if you know, the lawmakers, in the law there was no mechanism provided that if the notice under section 148 is received, what do we do? The law only provided for you to file the return, and all this filing the objections, getting the objection order, filing a writ petition against the objections, all these things were not written in the law itself, friends. It was only because of the Apex Court decision in the case of GK and Drive Theft reported in 259 ITR page 19 that we followed the procedure which was laid down, where the law provided that once you receive the notice under the earlier law, you have to file the return of income. Once you have filed the return of income, then you have to seek the reasons recorded in writing from the assessing officer. Once you get the reasons recorded in writing, then you could have issued, then you could have filed objections to the reasons recorded in writing. And once the reasons recorded in writing were given to, once you had filed the objections, then the assessing officer was bound to pass an order on objections. And after having got an order on objections, you could have approached the writ court under Article 226 of Constitution of India by challenging the notice which was issued under section 148. And number of cases Supreme Court has struck down the notice. Latest in New Delhi television, 148 was struck down by Supreme Court under the earlier law based on the decision of Calcutta Discount, which was pronounced in the year 1961. This was the law. So basically, friends, what the new change has been done is that this GK and Drive Theft virtually has been incorporated in section 148A of the Income Tax Act. Because 148A provides that where the assessing officer, in pursuance of some information, wants to issue a notice, then he will make an inquiry first. And friends, even before making the inquiry, it has been provided that he has to seek the approval of his higher authority. which is provided in section 151 of the Income Tax Act itself. So this is first check, that when you are doing the inquiry, you first take your approval from your higher authority that I am doing this inquiry. Once you have taken the approval, you can do the inquiry. Once you have done the inquiry, you have the results of the inquiry, you are satisfied that it's the fit case, where you can go for issuing the notice under section 148 of the Income Tax Act. Then you will be supposed to issue a notice to the so-called notice to the SSE first, that look, I want to reopen your assessment and I have done my inquiry. This is the result of my inquiry. If you have to say anything, you can tell me. Otherwise, I will issue the notice. So, opportunity of natural justice. As provided, the GK and Drive Act said that after notice reasons, he has to give you the reasons. There the reasons were required to be given after the notice was issued and return was filed. But here the law provides that reasons for issuance of notice have to be given to you before issuance of notice. So he will give you a so-cause notice first. Once you get the so-cause notice, friends, then you can point out all your objections as we did under the earlier law. That look, these are the reasons on which I am objecting. That your inquiry is not incomplete, your information is incomplete, my income is not undisclosed, my income has been disclosed. All your grievances you can put forward. Once you have put forward your grievances to the so-called notice, friends, then the assessing officer will take into account your grievances and then he will pass an order that if he is satisfied or not satisfied, he will pass an order and thereafter he will issue you the notice under section 148 along with the order which has been passed by him in pursuance to the so-called notice which was given by him to you, and taking into account your response, friends. Here also, prior to issuing the so-called notice, prior to issuing the notice under section 148, he has to take approval of his higher authority as provided under section 151 of the Income Tax Act. So once you receive the notice under section 148, along with the order which the assessing officer has passed, then here, friends, the question will arise that can I here approach the writ court against the so-called against the notice under section 148 and the order which has been passed by the assessing officer? I think, friends, that yes, one can. Because the order which has been passed under section 148A of the Income Tax Act is not an appealable order. So therefore, you can directly challenge this order in a court of law under Article 226 of Constitution of India. That look, the order does not take into account, there is a defect, there are defects in the order. The information, all grounds which we used to take while challenging the objection order earlier law, under the earlier law, can be, and all the decisions which were there under the earlier law can still be utilized in the new law also. I think those decisions do not become now redundant. Those decisions are still of vital use. They can very much be utilized, friends. And what comes to my mind immediately here, one more thing, that when you have been issued the notice under section 148, along with the order which I just now spoke, there can be defects in the notice itself. As we have seen that there are defects in the notice which is issued. The notice is undated, the notice is unsigned, the notice does not mention the assessment year, the notice does not is not in the proper form, and these the notice has been served, the notice has been not issued, issue and service. Though in 148 we know that issuance is important, not the service within the limitation, but there are litigation as far as with respect to issuance and service of notice. All those things can still be, all those grounds will still be available to you. However, one more thing, friends, once the notice has been issued to you along with the order, the law does not provide for further objections to be filed by you against that notice. And it remains to be seen that to what extent GK and Drivesafe's case can still be utilized, that look, even after getting the notice under section 148, including the order, can I still make an objection to the notice that notice is defective? This remains to be seen, and only the time will tell, friends, that what will happen. So this is as far as, friends, the time limitation is concerned. And here one important change which has been done is that they have done away with the need for regions to be recorded, because under the earlier law it was explicitly provided that before issuing the notice the assessing officer must record his regions. However, now there is no need for recording any regions. He need not record the regions. So therefore, all those disputes that there could not have been reason to believe the regions were not properly recorded, all those disputes may be said to have been settled, may be said to have been buried, but still the disputes as far as he had the information or did not have the information, those disputes will still remain. But this is an important change. And friends, another important change which they have silently, I would say, done is that in case the reassessment notice now is issued, then the law provides that if the assessing officer wants to make any addition in respect of any item which was not subject matter of regions recorded in writing, that is, suppose if he has issued the notice for assessing undisclosed income of my asset invested in land 1 crore, and when he was doing the assessment for this land, he found out that I had not disclosed another land also which was 1 crore. So he could have added that land also. But the apex court decision in Jet Airways case, and there are other Ranbaxy's case is also there, that unless the original amount for which the notice under section 148 was issued was not subject matter of addition in the reassessment order, then the assessing officer could not have added the other item. That was the settled law. However, friends, they have reframed the language of the provision, and now it is, I presume, that the assessing officers would be tempted to issue notice under section 148 in the guise of making assessment of any other item for which they would not have been, they would not be able to issue the notice under section 148 first hand. That kind of mechanism they may try to do, friends, but I am of the opinion that still the law which has been laid down in the Jet Airways case, that still can be argued that unless, because the reason is simple, because if the assessing officer does not make any addition for the in respect of the item for which notice under section 148 was issued after complying with the provisions of 148A, and he makes the addition in respect of any other item for which the provisions of section 148A has not been complied with. So therefore, this will be something which is beyond the scope of assessing officer in my humble submission, friends. Though again, this is a dispute which will be settled only when the time comes, when the provisions are subject matter of judicial interpretation, friends. Now, friends, another important change which has been made is that the provisions relating to assessment in pursuance of search have been incorporated in the reassessment provisions itself. As all of us know, that in case of a search, friends, the search assessment used to be done for 6 plus 1 year in which the search was conducted. But now if in respect of any search which is conducted after 31st of March, the reassessment would be done for 3 years. 3 years window will get open for search assessments under the reassessment provisions only. And the same provisions will apply in case of search cases also. Though here, friends, the lawmakers have said that in case a search has been conducted, then in those cases, the provisions of section 148A, which I just now narrated before you regarding giving opportunity, will not be applicable. So in case search is conducted, it will be a case of deemed escapement of income, and the assessing officer will straight away issue the notice under section 148 to you on the basis of the search which was conducted, or asset which has been requisitioned under section 132A of the Income Tax Act. But here also, friends, the window is 3 years only. So here in case of search also, friends, if the extended window of 10 years is to be utilized, then you would be required to follow the provisions of section 148A, I think, because the automatic opening of window is only for 3 years, even in such cases. And in survey also, if survey has been done, originally, friends, in the finance bill, which was when the provisions were introduced, in case of all kind of survey, 148 notices could have been issued. But when the Lok Sabha took up the bill, friends, 2 kinds of survey were excluded. First is, if the survey is in pursuance of TDS defaults, and second is, if the survey is on account of any function, etc., say is any marriage is being held, and if any survey takes place at the marriage hall, so these 2 kind of surveys could not lead to initiation of reassessment proceedings under section 148 of the Income Tax Act. So therefore, search and survey now gets combined under the reassessment provisions. Another thing which has been made, friends, now let us come to the limitation aspect again. Section 149 of the Income Tax Act under the earlier law and under the new law deals with the issuance of notice, and 149 under the new law, friends, I have already explained the 3 years and 10 years window. The new law specifically says, friends, specifically provides, section 149 has a proviso which says, I will read from the proviso: provided that no notice under section 148 shall be issued at any time in the case for the relevant assessment year beginning on or before 1st day of April 2021. On or before 1st day of April 2021 assessment year, that is 21-22 assessment year and earlier years. Why? When if such notice could not have been issued at that time, on account of being beyond the time limit specified under the law as stood prior to the amendment by the Finance Act of 2021. What does that mean, friends? That means that for the assessment year 21, 22 and earlier years, the time limits of the earlier law will apply. So if under the earlier law, the notice could have been issued based on the provisions as existed, then only the notice under the new law can be issued. So therefore, virtually it means that 6 years window is kept for the notices to be issued under the earlier, in respect of the earlier years. That saving clause they have kept, friends, which is a good thing. That it does not mean virtually that it is a retrospective amendment of law, that now the assessment for assessment year 11-12 can be reopened. It can't be. That is a very good provision, friends. But now let us come to the burning topic, friends, which is now in the minds of everybody, that how come the income tax department is issuing the notices for assessment year 2013-14 and 14-15. Other years I am not bothered, friends, because 17-18 they could have issued, they could issue even under the new law now. Of course, based on the new law, not under the earlier law. So friends, prior to approaching this issue, that whether they could or they could not, I was just trying to see that what has been the what has been the department's view, or the what has been the lawmakers' methodology in such cases. Take for example section 271, the penalty. As all of you know, the penalty provisions were replaced by section 270A of the Income Tax Act. Earlier law, there was penalty was under section 271(1)A, 271(1)C, concealment penalty for furnishing inaccurate particulars of income or concealment of income. The penalty was being imposed under section 271(1)C of the Act, which was later on replaced with 270A, misreporting and underreporting of income. But if you read the provisions of section 271(1), it says that for this section will prevail for notices in respect of this assessment year, up to this assessment year. So therefore, even though the assessment for a particular assessment year may have been conducted afterwards, but the penalty provisions were governed only by the earlier section 271. In those cases, the law is specifically provided in section 271. And friends, here, let us come, when the 1922 Act was replaced with 1961 Act, then friends, section 297 of the Income Tax Act, section 297 of the Income Tax Act, if you see, which deals with the repeal and savings, 297 says, I am reading section 297 subclause 2 subclause D, that that where in respect of any assessment year after the year ending on 31st day of March 1940, a notice under section 34 of the repealed act has been issued before the commencement of the act. So here the lawmakers had provided for mechanism regarding the manner in which the notices under section 34 of the 1922 Act had to be dealt with, or in respect of the notices which were issued under the 1961 Act in respect of the assessment year prevailing prior to the assessment, prior to 1961 Act. The lawmakers had taken care of those issues in the repeal and savings section 297 of the Income Tax Act. Similarly, friends, if you read section 298 of the Income Tax Act, section 298 of the Income Tax Act subsection 1 says that if any difficulty arises in giving effect to the provisions of this act, the central government may by general or special order do anything not inconsistent with such provisions, which appears to it to be necessary or expedient for the purpose of removing the difficulty. So friends, 298 contains a provision whereby in order to remove difficulty, the central government has been given power to do something. Now friends, let us come to the powers by virtue of which the central government has derived the power to issue the notice. For assessment year 2013-14, the notices are being issued under the old one section 148. If you read the latest notification which was issued, whereby the time limits have been extended to 30th of June 2021. Friends, it gives reference to the power which has been taken by which has been taken upon itself by the central government in pursuance to the taxation law ordinance which was issued in the month of September 2020. Section 3(1) of that ordinance, friends, and if I can, section 3(1) of the ordinance, friends, I will have it. I have it with me. Section 3(1). I will read first few lines of that ordinance, friends, which is called the Taxation and Other Laws, Relaxation and Amendment of Certain Provisions Act 2020. It was an ordinance issued by Honorable President of India because of the reasons Parliament was not functioning, and the ordinance had to be issued, friends. And section 3(1) says, where any time limit has been specified in, comma, or prescribed or notified under, comma, the specified act which falls during the period from the 20th day of March 2020 to 31st day of December 2020, or such other date after the 31st day of March 2020, as the central government by notification specify in this behalf for the completion or compliance of such action. Friends, read it properly, read it. I have read it twice and thrice. The central government by notification for completion or compliance of the action. So power has been given to whom? To the central government for the completion or compliance of the acts which has been for issuing any notice, etc., etc. Friends, now when I read this ordinance and the power by virtue of which this the latest notification dated 27th April has been issued by the Central Board of Direct Taxes, it gives reference to that section 3(1) only. And friends, here the notification has been issued by Central Board of Direct Taxes. I am asking myself, is Central Board of Direct Tax equal to central government? Are central government and Central Board of Direct Taxes pari materia to each other? Because the ordinance has given power to central government, not to CBDT. The notification has been issued by CBDT. My first point, friends, though these are all subject matter of interpretation, friends, here I would place before this august house, friends, one decision of Supreme Court in the case of Academy of Nutrition Improvement versus Union of India, reported in 2011 8 SCC 274, where the Honorable Supreme Court had the occasion to deal with the delegated legislation, because this is something which is a delegated legislation. The legislation has been delegated to central government, and by virtue of that delegated legislation, central government is doing something. To what extent the delegated legislation can be utilized, friends? In that context, friends, the Supreme Court said it was not a tax case, friends. First of all, it is dealing only with the concept of delegated legislation, and for that purpose I am borrowing this decision. What it says the power delegated by an enactment does not enable the authority by regulations to extend the scope or the general operation of the enactment, but is strictly ancillary. It will authorize the provision of subsidiary means of carrying into effect what is enacted in the statute itself, and will cover what is incidental to execution of a specific provision. But such a power will not support, I am repeating, but such a power will not support attempts to widen the purposes of the Act, to add new and different means of carrying them out, or to depart from or vary its end. So friends, the power which was given by, even assuming but not admitting that the ordinance by which central government was given power to extend the compliance or completion of certain acts, did that ordinance give power to the central government to say that for the period till 30th June, the notices under section 148 would be deemed to have been issued under the earlier law, and the provisions of the earlier law will apply, not the new law. In my humble submission, friends, these are subject matter of interpretation, and obviously there is something which is not in accordance with the law, apparently it appears. Because you see, there are a lot of things I can foresee. There are a lot of inconvenience to which SSCs have been put. Anything, limitation, there are so many things under the Income Tax Act related to limitation. You see, 8 years limitation is provided for setting off the losses under the Income Tax Act. Now, because of COVID, that 8-year limitation has passed. I have not been able to set off the losses. So who will deal with that? Who will deal with that? Why that date is not getting extended by virtue of the notification? This is only one example, friends, I have given, but there can be thousands of limitations like this. So therefore, this is not an omnibus kind of and if you read the order of the Supreme Court, friends, the suo motu case where the limitations were extended, I don't think that limitation dealt with the issuance of exercising powers in this manner. Going by this manner. So therefore, now suppose a assessing officer comes, gets hold of certain information now that income relating to assessment year 2013-14 has escaped assessment. So he will exercise this power of issuing notice within 30th June. Is it not extending the law itself, friends? Two parallel 148 notices, two parallel acts are functioning. I don't think, friends, this is within the scheme of the things. But as of now, I have not come across a lot of people ask us the questions that what should we do? So our obvious reply is that you should challenge this before the court of law only. And as all of us know, it is not cost effective for everybody to go to a Calcutta High Court and challenge the notice. So obviously, friends, in those cases, one can do is give his objections on this point before the assessing officer, that he doesn't have the jurisdiction under the, he should give his objection on all points that he is challenging. The notice is bad in law, and therefore let that point be kept alive if one cannot go to the High Court on this point, friends. Then friends, so this is as far as limitation is concerned, friends. Now let us come to change of opinion. Under the earlier law, Kelvinators case 320 ITR phase 561, there could not have been a reassessment on a change of opinion. So what is the status under the new law? Can there be a change of opinion? No, friends. I think under the new law also, the assessing officer will not assume jurisdiction to issue notice under section 148 in case of a change of opinion. That point will still be valid in my opinion, friends. Then friends, the approval of the higher authority. Section 151 provides for approval of the higher authority, as all of us know. Here, there under the earlier law, there were a lot of decisions that a higher authority is supposed to exercise its brain, exercise its mind properly before it can approve the issuance of notice. Those kind of decisions, those decisions will still be good law, friends, because here also the sanction of the higher authority which has been provided, here also the higher authority should not just be a rubber stamp that approved. Yes, if those things are done, then that would also be a perfect case for arguing before a court of law that the approval was mechanically given and it cannot be the subject. Reassessment is bad in law in those cases, friends. Then friends, another thing here, lot of people ask me this question, that under the earlier law, one could not have given direction to the assessing officer to issue the notice. All of us know 314 ITR Greenbird Corporation Supreme Court case, where the reassessment at the behest of commissioner was held to be bad in law. Because after all, the reason to believe must be that of the assessing officer. He could not have been directed by his higher authorities. But now, here, as far as information-based reassessment is concerned, since the information is flagged in the case of the SSC, so therefore to that extent the information will come to the assessing officer, after which he will make an inquiry. Making of an inquiry at the officer's level is still there. It is not that somebody else will make an inquiry and give him the material that you issue the notice. That is not warranted. Here, after having got the information, still he would have to make his independent inquiry. That is not precluded. Before making inquiry, he cannot proceed itself. So that is not warranted, friends. That is still is there and existing. One more thing, friends. Under the present law, there is a proviso in section 147 which says that if a subject matter is carried in appeal before the appellate authorities, then that cannot be a ground for reassessment. Suppose if there was an addition of 1 crore and that addition has been challenged before the higher authorities, then that particular item of income could not have been subject matter of issuance of notice under section 148. But that proviso has not been kept in the new section. So what does that mean? Does that mean that even if that particular item of income is being carried before the appellate authorities, the assessing officer will exercise jurisdiction to issue the notice. So therefore, the same item would be dealt with by the appellate authority as well as by the assessing officer. This is obviously going to create trouble, and I think that the lawmakers the interpretation would come in such a manner that no, if the item has been carried in appeal and it is already been dealt with there, then that cannot be a ground for reassessment, friends. So then, friends, there are other provisions regarding the limitation, time limit for completion of assessment under section 153. They have not been touched. Section 147, 148, 148A, 149. These are the 4 sections, friends, which has been substituted. Other provisions have not been touched upon, friends. That's all, friends. I will stop my deliberations here. Now let us discuss for the benefit of all. Thank you.
Devan, you are there?
Yes, yes, I am here.
Yes, yes. So before Ramesh ji starts answering the questions, you will moderate the questions for his benefit. One thing, Ramesh ji, I would like to say here that the lockdown took place on 24th of March 2020. And there was time till 31st of March 2020 to issue notice for assessment year 13-14, reopening. I mean, had the lockdown taken place 8 days after that, say from 1st of April 2020, then the plea of the government would not have been there, because for 7 days lockdown, they took 15 months extension for that matter. For a 7-day lockdown, they got the opportunity of a 15-month extension for reopening of assessments for 13-14.
Exactly.
And especially what you rightly said also, that now they are even in that extended period also, because I think on the 4th of March, the CBDT had also given an instruction that you cannot issue any notice beyond 31st March. But on the 30th evening, they came out with that notification that it is extended till 30th April. And I think on 27th April, as you rightly said, further extended till 30th June. Now, the sanctity of the reopenings after March actually is the moot question also. March means March 21, I mean to say. ठीक है, March 20 से 21 extend हो गया, ठीक है, क्या किया जा सकता है? The advantage of the lockdown, they didn't give us much advantage of the lockdown, but they themselves took a lot of advantage of the lockdown. But how can there be a reason to believe after 31st March 21? The reason to believe should have been earlier. The reason to believe cannot take place at a later date. That is
where because section 3(1) says completion or compliance. Completion of something or compliance of something.
Yes, yes.
But it is not initiation of a proceeding.
Correct.
Basically, initiating the proceedings.
So that way, sir, any notice issued between April 1st, 21 to 30th June 2021, which has not come yet, another 1 month is left, that is actually violative, frankly speaking, of the ordinance 3(1).
When they have extended till 30th June 21, what prevents them by their own interpretation from extending it to 30th June 2022?
Yes, you can't stop them.
By going by that ordinance, they have all the power to extend it for indefinite period.
Yes, exactly.
Is it the interpretation you can, if you make this interpretation, then really I am reminded of the decision of Apex Court in Parsuram Pottery 106 ITR, that you will be reviving the stale proceedings.
Yes, exactly. Another important thing you said, sir, is that section 148 capital A is coming before 148, and hence it is not appealable, because whatever order is passed, if the department feels that it is a fit case for reopening, then he can reopen, and the only remedy is Article 226 of the Constitution, that writ petition. That is also a very important point, which you have mentioned also. So Devan, please take the questions, and if there are any questions from the floor also we can take.
Yes.
It will take some time.
So what I will do is I have copied these questions
Yes.
in one page. I'll share that screen and I'll take the questions one by one. And I would also like to mention that the number of participants that I see on the screen at this point of time is also 148.
That is a good one.
So I think the screen is visible now, right?
Yes, yes, sir, yes. Sir.
So this was the first question that we got. Sir, please guide about legality of notice under section 148 after 31st March 21 for assessment year 17-18. I think the question he wanted to ask probably was 16-17.
No, 17-18 also is can be reopened, huh? Isn't it?
And section 149 of the new provision provides that for the
3 years.
For the assessment year 2021-22 and earlier years, limitation as was given in the earlier law will apply. So basically that is means 6 years limitation will apply for the notices which are issued for assessment year 21-22 and earlier year. So then 2017-18 and 18-19 will be within 6 years limitation period. That will be all right. The only thing is that when you are issuing the notice for assessment year 2017-18, it should criteria of the new law, basically that beyond 3 years, asset must be there, represent asset of 50 lakhs. That criteria must be of the new law, though the time limit will be of the old law.
Yes.
So therefore, to that extent, 17-18, you could not have any grievance if the notice has been issued in accordance with these provisions.
Under the new law, you mean to say? Under the new law. Okay.
So this was the partial question probably. For 10 years, whether there is any retrospective effect for 10 years?
I have, I think, dealt with this, that the lawmakers have clarified that for the assessment year 21-22 and earlier years, the time limit of earlier law will apply. So basically that is 6 years in general cases and 16 years if foreign asset is involved. So therefore it is not retrospective, though in the light of the present notification which is being issued by CBDT extending up to 30th June, to that extent it is becoming retrospective. That 13-14, going by the new section 149, 2013-14 is barred as per the new section 149. But the CBDT is utilizing the notification issued in April for issuing the notices for 2013-14 and 14-15, which is subject matter of dispute.
The next question was on reopening of 143(3) cases. So I think this you have covered. So please dwell on reopening of 143(3) cases under the new provisions as also the old ones.
143(3) cases, even if the assessment has been completed under the scrutiny, but if there is any information that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment, then notwithstanding the original assessment would have been completed under 143(3), that can be a ground for issuing notice under the new provisions. That is not barred, I think. One can do it.
And as also the old one, I mean, in the old scheme?
In the old scheme also. In the old scheme, I explained that if the original assessment was completed under 143(3) and if the notice was issued beyond 4 years up to 6 years, then there must have been an averment in the reasons recorded in writing that there was an omission or failure on part of the assessee to disclose fully and truly all material facts. that golden line must have been written in the reasons recorded in writing. If that golden line was missing, then we always used to take the benefit of Calcutta discount case that the assessing officer has nowhere said that there was any omission or failure on my part to disclose fully and truly, and therefore the notice is bad in law.
So the next question, assessment was completed under section 143(3) in share capital case. The share capital transactions were done with 6 different parties. All were duly examined and assessment was completed without any additions. Now AO is in possession of some information about transactions with one of these 6 parties. Can he reassess under section 147 the transaction with this particular party? That is the first question. And the second part is, can he reassess transactions with other 5 parties for which no information is in his possession?
You see, the original assessment has been completed after scrutiny, after getting details of the transactions. Now, under the earlier law, friends, this true and full disclosure was there. So therefore, there was an obligation upon you to disclose fully and truly. When you have not disclosed the transaction properly under the earlier law, when there was non-disclosure on your part, then the courts have come to the rescue of the department that look, the transaction was not disclosed, therefore the notices were correctly issued. Under the new provisions, friends, whether you have disclosed the transaction properly or not properly, all those concepts have not been carried forward in the new law. There is no such concept now. The new concept is that if there is a information which says that there was escapement of income, and for up to 3 years, beyond 3 years, if the information suggests that there was an escapement of income coupled with the evidence that it is represented in the form of some asset, these are the only criteria. So therefore, in this kind of a situation where the transaction was explained, but if it is found that there was some transaction, the disclosure was not proper, and it has come to the notice of the assessing officer that some income has escaped assessment, then I think that can form the basis of information under the new law. Unless one can say that there has been no non-disclosure, there has been no fraud or misrepresentation, in that case one can argue the change of opinion, that you have already formed an opinion that the share capital was genuine and the source of source was explained as required under section 68, read with section 115 BBE. So there you can take the plea of change of opinion, but the case will have to be built up on a very meticulous manner, in my opinion, under the new law. The way we had the luxury under the earlier law, to some extent that luxury is getting diluted here.
Sir, the next request was to discuss section 149 subsection 1.
149 subsection 1 I have dealt with. 149 basically deals with 3 years and 10 years window. That I have already discussed, I think, friends. Time limit.
Another question that came in was just to reassure if there is requirement of filing return under section 148 under the new provisions.
Yes, definitely. 148, you have to file a return if the notice is issued. The self says.
The next question. What are the tax implications in a reopening for a particular year where the transactions in question has already been included in total income in the original return filed, This is with reference to instances where SEBI is questioning derivative transactions entered into on BSE and terming them as bogus.
You see, very good question. That where the derivative transactions have been disclosed as income and the SSCs have been issued the notice, and basically in those cases the department is trying to assess those income under section 68 of the Income Tax Act so that they can utilize the higher bracket of 115 BBE of the Income Tax Act, whereas you would have disclosed it as your normal income and taken the exemption limit of 2,50,000 and other provisions. So here basically the income is a very good question, I must say, that there has been no non-disclosure of the income itself. It is only a difference is coming in the tax. Basically the tax rate would become higher if this income is assessed in a different section than the section in which you have been assessed. In such a situation, friends, where the bogus the transaction is held to be a bogus transaction and you have introduced your own money and section 68 is being sought to be applied. So here the assessing officer would be competent. I think you would have to defend that no, the transaction was a genuine transaction. I think you would not, you would have to defend the transaction itself. That's all you can do.
The next question, when intimating the AO about having filed ITR in response to a notice under section 148 and seeking reasons for reopening, is it advisable to also ask whether the proceedings will be conducted under the old provisions or new ones?
Here my reply would be that you should not ask that whether it will be old or new. You should stick to the new law. That because this is the new law is the law which is applicable. It is the assessing officer who may be presuming, unless he has explicitly, if he explicitly says that it is being issued under the old law, then you should challenge the issuance of notice under the old law, and you should comply, but you should challenge his action under the old law. But as far as you are concerned, the notice is issued under the new law and you should follow the new law.
Coming to the next question, sir. Instructions dated 4th March 21 had 5 categories for issues of 148 notice on or before 31st March 21. Is extension to 30th April and to 30th June valid?
We have already discussed this point threadbare, I think. Extension of the issuance of notice till 30th June.
So, acha. Sir, please mention the case law again, where delegation of legislation or power
case law, please.
Has been.
I am repeating the case law. Please note down. It is Academy of Nutrition Improvement versus Union of India, reported in 2011, 8 SCC. It is Supreme Court cases, 8 SCC 274. 8 SCC 274. You can easily find this case on India Kanun, which is a free website. You can get this case on that website.
So the next question, can an outright notice under section 148 be issued under the new law, even if nothing was found during the search or survey?
In so far as search is concerned, the outright notice can be issued for search only. There, because it has been deemed to be a case of escapement, but that is only up to 3 years. Even in such cases beyond 3 years, if the notice is required to be issued, then he will have to comply with the provisions under section 148A. Similar is for survey.
Sir, the next question, while filing return of income under section 148, should we include the accepted income under Vivad Se Vishwas or any other income which SSC did not dispute in appeal?
See here, here as far as including the income which has been disclosed under the Vivad Se Vishwas is concerned, lot of people have faced practical difficulty, because if you include the income which has been disclosed under the Vivad Se Vishwas, then the software will automatically calculate the interest, etc., and the tax rate, etc. So what we have rather advised the our clients is to file the original return and later on intimate this fact to the assessing officer that the income has already been disclosed, so therefore there is no ground for issuance of notice under section 148, and 148 proceedings should not be continued in such a situation.
So the next question, for assessment year 2014-15, whose sanctioning is required? As per old law, CIT or JCIT? As per new law, CCIT or the CIT?
See, since they are saying that we are issuing the notice under the old law, therefore obviously they will take the section 151 compliance of the section 151 as per the old law, not as per the new law. But in as far as SSC is concerned, SSC will challenge the notice as bad in law that 2014-15 cannot be issued according to us.
The next question, the member says, to my understanding, there is only one saving clause in the form of proviso to section 149(1). It has not saved the old law altogether except the time limit under section 149. So reassessment should be done as per the new law. Is this correct?
Yes, you are right. There is only one proviso which has saved, that is only time limit. And I have discussed this already, and the new law will apply even for the earlier assessment years. When the notice are issued, the provisions, the procedural provisions of new law will apply.
The next one is a request where the participant says that whether all the question and answers can be compiled and sent to the participants. So in this regard, I can mention that this program is also being recorded, and generally we put it on the YouTube. So we will be sharing the link. So in that case, if you have to refer to this question answer session and you want to know about something, you can always refer to the link. Sir, suppose in case I missed to file the return, can I request AO to issue notice under section 148 so that I will be able to file the return and get the refund?
For getting the refund, I think it will be difficult. You have to follow the procedure laid down in 119, I think. But if there is any tax is payable, then I will advise that you straight away pay the tax and show your bona fides that look, before your detection, I have paid the taxes as per the law, even though I could not file my return within the due date. But that does not absolve you of prosecution as held by Supreme Court. In the case of Honorable late Chief Minister Sasikala, this Jayalalitha Sasikala case, you see, where the return was not filed on the pretext that there was no tax, but Supreme Court said that that does not absolve you of prosecution. You should have filed the return.
Sir, the next question, when is the last date to file return of income in response to notice under section 148, for which original date as per notice to file return of income was 1st April 2021? May 31, 2021, or has it been further extended?
No, generally the assessing officer would give you a time to file the return of income, and the number of days are generally specified in the notice. If you want some time extension, you could write to the assessing officer for extending the time for filing the return. That time should be followed. If you do not file your return within the time as has been given to you, then the assessing officer would be free to pass the ex parte order under section 144 of the Income Tax Act.
Still filing of letter is, whether filing of letter is sufficient compliance to notice under section 148, or we need to file return of income electronically?
No, there are number of decisions, even that of a Calcutta High Court is also there, that you can simply file a letter that my return already filed may be treated as return in response to the notice under section 148. You need not file the return again electronically.
While filing a letter, how do we include the accepted income or income which has been settled under Vivad Se Vishwas?
See, as I have already discussed, if you can include this income under the return which you will, if you include this income offered under Vivad Se Vishwas and file a fresh return, if the software permits, then it is well and good. Otherwise, when you file the letter, you can write in detail that the reason on which reassessment proceedings are being initiated are now no longer required because you have already declared the income under Vivad Se Vishwas and you have been issued the necessary form number 4 and 5 under the Act.
The last question, if old year's reassessment is to be done under the new law, then how can the AO issue notice under section 148 without annexing order under section 148 capital A as are being received till 30th June 2021?
This is the whole dispute, friends, because you are interpreting the law in your the way it suits you. The department is interpreting the law the way it suits them. It is now only the courts will decide who is right.
Yes.
So these were the questions in the chat box that we had. And
if
sir
there are
has
any other questions from the floor also, if anyone still has some doubts, we still have some time available with us. So if someone has a question, can directly unmute and ask their question. Directly ask their question. Because especially now, Ramesh ji, this there will be a blackout.
Ramesh ji, my name is Rajendra Agrawal.
Yes, sir.
Sir, under the old law, there was provision of only one permission from superior authorities. From 147 to 151, if you read the section, sanction was taken only under section 151. But under the new law, I find there are at least 4 occasions when prior sanction of superior authorities has to be taken.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Practically speaking, do you think it will be possible for the department to stick to the parameters of sanction because it involves the application of minds?
Yes, sir. You are, first of all, your interpretation is correct that under the earlier law, it was only once that assessing officer had to go to his higher authority after recording the reasons. He had to produce those reasons before his sanctioning authority, that please see the reasons which I have recorded and please approve that whether the reasons are sufficient for me to assume jurisdiction to issue the notice under section 148 of the Income Tax Act. Section 151 of the Income Tax Act dealt with that mechanism.
Exactly.
And under the earlier law, there are a lot of decisions where the courts have found that there was a mechanical approval given by the sanctioning authority. Because It was as officer. Sometimes it has come on record that notices were issued first and approvals were taken afterwards. It was proved on the from the records. So therefore, the exercise of jurisdiction under 148 was held to be bad in law in those cases. Now, friends, one thing I will commend, I will give thumbs up to the department, to the lawmakers, friends, that they want to take this 148 proceedings in a very serious note. They want to tell their assessing officers also that, look, I am giving you the power to issue notice under section 148, but your power you must not exercise in a arbitrary, in a irrational manner at the whims and fancies. Assessing officer used to say, Ama, tumi eta koro na hole ami 148 kore debo. Well, we all used to hear, but friends, now it is all digital means of communication. And mind it, friends, the approval mechanism, everything which is being done here, I have not touched upon that because that is altogether a new whole subject. Everything is being done under a digital means of communication. Even the department correspondence is by way of digital means. When the assessing officer is giving the information and seeking approval of his higher authority, it is supposed to be not movement of file from Aikar Bhavan to third floor to first floor. It is not movement of file. It is movement of Word, Microsoft Word file by way of electronic means of communication, which cannot be tampered with, friends. So therefore, friends, since the lawmakers want 3-level or 4-level check of higher authorities, they want to ensure that 148 is issued not in a very reckless manner, unless the authorities are sure that this is going to result in escapement of income. And it is all the more good for us because now the electoral records cannot be changed, friends. The time also is given, the date also is given, the signature, digital signature was there or not. So now they have to be alert, on their toes. Earlier we were only on the toes. The assessing officers were only sitting in their chamber, but now they are also on their toes. And they know that when we are doing something, we must do it within the four corners of law as prescribed. I welcome this 4-level check.
But sir, my drift was the concept of application of mind by the superior authorities still remains under the new regime. Now there are plethora of case laws when there was only 1 level. Now there are 4 or 5. So will it not be a minefield for litigation again?
No, only because approval mechanism has been prescribed, it is, one cannot say that it is at the behest of the higher authorities. It is not at some checks and balances have been provided under the law that when you are making an inquiry, then you have to take an approval for making inquiry, but that does not mean that the higher authority will direct him that the manner in which the inquiry has to be made. That is all left to the assessing officer. He can do the inquiry in any manner. He has to only say that, look, I want to make the inquiry because I have found this, and the assessing higher authority will permit him to make an inquiry. But higher authority will not direct. He will not say, there will be, immediately what comes to my mind is, it's a master and servant relationship. Like when there is a servant and master relationship, then the master will direct that this thing has to be done by you and you have to do in this manner. But when there is a consultant and a relationship, then the consultant will do, but he will utilize his own mind in doing the manner in which the inquiry has to be done. That he will be doing on his own. So I don't think that one can say that it is at the behest of the higher authorities. But no doubt, in some cases, while the higher authority, if while giving the sanction, if it gives certain particular directions of taking the inquiry in a particular manner, then you can say that mind of the higher authority is working more than the mind of the assessing officer. And in those kind of cases, one can argue that it is the notice is not issued at the behest of the officer, but at the behest of his higher officer. That can be done.
Also, sir, the use of expressions such as, yes, I am satisfied. There have been a number of litigation on, yes, I am satisfied.
Yes, I am satisfied is not a sanction at all. The courts have said it's a mechanical,
Exactly.
mechanical approvals have been rejected all at the outset by the courts of law. So that will still be under the new law also, the mechanical approvals will be rejected and the issuance of notice or whatever order will be held to be invalid in those cases.
That is precisely my point.
Yes, sir.
See, Anand Agarwal has also raised his hand. If you could kindly raise your question, sir. Yes.
गुड मॉर्निंग सर.
Good morning.
सर एक क्वेश्चन ये था, असेसमेंट ईयर 12-13 में 148 हुआ, उसके बाद उसको सीआईटी ने 263 किया, 263 ड्रॉप हो गया, उसके बाद अभी फिर 148 हो गया तो 31 मार्च 2021 को सेम रीजन पे. दो रीजन 148 का पहले था, बाद में उसको असेसमेंट किया, फिर 263 किया, सीआईटी ने एक्सेप्ट किया. तो क्या सीआईटी अपना व्यू चेंज कर सकता है, उसी उसमें अप्रूवल दे सकता है जो 263 में ड्रॉप कर चुका?
148 इश्यू हुआ, उसके बाद 148 के बाद में 263 हुआ.
हाँ,
263 में ड्रॉप
हो गया.
148 का ओरिजिनल असेसमेंट था, वो
उसमें भी उसने ऐड नहीं किया था तो सीआईटी ने 263 किया.
हाँ, 148 का ओरिजिनल असेसमेंट में ऐड नहीं किया तो 263 किया, फिर सेकंड टाइम फिर 148 हो गया.
हाँ, अभी फिर 31 मार्च को फिर 148 हो गया सेम रीजन पे.
देन इट इज अ चेंज ऑफ ओपिनियन.
अब उसमें एक चीज है सर, क्या हमको सुप्रीम कोर्ट की गाइडलाइन के हिसाब से रिटर्न फाइल करके ऑब्जेक्शन लगाना चाहिए या डायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्शन लगा दें?
आप डायरेक्ट चैलेंज कीजिए कोर्ट में, छत्तीसगढ़ हाई कोर्ट में चले जाइए,
रिट फाइल कर दें कि सीआईटी ने व्यू चेंज कर लिया.
छत्तीसगढ़ चले जाइए हाई कोर्ट.
जी. थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू.
तो आप लोग एक दूसरे को पहले से जानते थे, इसीलिए छत्तीसगढ़ बोला.
गोवा सर भी जानते हैं मुझे.
राइट. अच्छा, और कुछ दिवान, एनी अदर क्वेश्चंस? देयर आर आई थिंक 1 or 2 क्वेश्चंस दैट हैव कम इन द चैट बॉक्स. थोड़ा सा देख लो ना दिवान. हाँ, दिवान, कैन यू हियर मी?
Sir, I can hear you. I think Chandrakji is speaking. I think
अच्छा, बोलिए.
सर, मेरा क्वेश्चन है, ये जो आपने कहा इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया में डिपार्टमेंट भी बंद किया है, वो लोग भी अपना कोरेस्पोंडेंस इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया में रखेंगे, ठीक है ना? जैसे हम लोग बंद गए हैं, तो हम लोग इसकी सर्टिफाइड कॉपी मांग सकते हैं क्या? जैसे आप 144B में फेसलेस असेसमेंट में सबसेक्शन 1 में 32 डिफरेंट सब क्लॉजेज हैं, ये ऐसा नहीं तो वैसा, वैसा नहीं तो वैसा. नेशनल असेसमेंट सेंटर जो है, नेशनल फेसलेस असेसमेंट सेंटर भेजेगा टेक्निकल यूनिट को, असेसिंग यूनिट को, वेरिफिकेशन यूनिट को. तो ये कैसे फ्लो ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन हुआ, नहीं हुआ, ठीक हुआ, इसको तो देखना है ना. तो इसको देखने के लिए हम लोग सर्टिफाइड कॉपी मांग सकते हैं क्या? जैसे 148 में भी ये काम आएगा, नया 148A में भी.
The internal communication of department, they will not give to you. They will only give to the authorities like tribunal and high court. If you go and you place before the high court that you, my lords, you please call for the records, it will be proved. So the high court and the tribunals, they will call for the internal records which the department will be bound to produce to them. But if any CIT appeal also, he can call for the records. CIT appeal has all the powers. but I don't think that they will give you the internal communications which they have. They will give it to you, except what the order sheet, with the order sheets which are given, that they will give, but not the other internal communications they will not give. But what I am trying to say is that order sheet को फाड़ के नया order sheet बनाना बहुत easy था, but यहाँ पे
नहीं होगा।
पढ़ना इजी नहीं है। अगर आप कोई फाइल डिलीट करेंगे तो लॉग में आ जाएगा कि कौन सा फाइल कब डिलीट हुआ, because I am sure that income tax department would have taken adequate digital safety, that it is not tampered with, and any digital record is, if it is tampered, then there is adequate trail of that this was done. So therefore, order sheet or digital order sheet और manual order sheet में बहुत बड़ा difference आने वाला है, यही, that is what we have to see.
But how you can get ensure that this has been properly followed without getting a certified copy or
Yes.
all these things, or you should take a ground of appeal if the provision of 144B has not been properly followed with.
Every officer is supposed to follow the law. That is the presumption.
Correct.
You feel that it has not been followed, then you can challenge, and it is up to the higher authorities to look into your grievance with the help of the records.
So you suggest we should take a ground like that.
Definitely, if you are if you have any suspicion or anything, you should definitely take it, but you should not माने हवा में तीर डालने वाला काम मत कीजिए. If you are putting an allegation on the department of anything wrongdoing, then you must be sure before you may put any allegations in writing. You should also be responsible while writing something. That is my submission.
Correct. Thank you.
Devan, or kichu question?
Sir, if you permit, can I ask you a very short question, not related to 148?
It is up to the president.
ठीक है कीजिए।
Sir, my short question is, can penalty proceedings under 271(1)(c) be commenced before the completion of assessment?
I think that since the law itself provides under section 275 of the Income Tax Act that the time limit for completion of penalty is 6 months from the end of the month in which the order is of the CIT appeal is received. So I don't think why the assessing officer will be in a hurry to impose the penalty even before the assessment has been completed, and even before you have been given an opportunity of challenging the additions before the higher authority on which the penalties will be based, unless the penalty is independent of the assessment. If any penalty is independent of any item of assessment, that can be done. Otherwise, I think if the assessing officer is doing it, then this will be outrageous and should be challenged.
Thank you, sir.
Devan, is there any other question? Devan, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think there was another question asked.
No, I do not see any other question in the chat box.
Acha. And any raising of hand is also not there, I think. I think we have almost come to the end, I think. Huh?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Ramesh ji. And I request CS Shumon Chaudhary to kindly offer a formal vote of thanks to our speaker, CA Ramesh Patodia ji. It was a very good session, Ramesh ji. People have been posting it in the chat box also. It was, you took a lot of pains to really go through the entire provisions of the old law as well as the new law, and I'm sure that the members who have attended today's session will benefit a lot. And since we are doing the recording also, if at all they have missed out on some points, they can once again refer it once they view the recording. Shumon, can you kindly offer the formal vote of thanks, please, to close the session? Shumon,
I don't think he's here.
tale Devan, tumi tale diye do. You give the thanks. Devan, you offered the formal vote of thanks, please.
Okay.
Huh.
Actually, I'm facing some kind of problems on my system. I'm doing that right.
Acha.
So thank you everyone for attending this program and making this a grand success. And on behalf of the Salt Lake City Chartered Accountant Study Circle,
I think he's facing some problems. Can you hear me, Rameshji?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. So I thank our speaker profusely for sparing his valuable time. 148 is a very hot topic, especially after the old law and the new law, coexisting together. And I'm sure that we will have a lot of interesting sessions on income tax with you. I request all the participants to kindly unmute themselves and give a thunderous applause to CA Ramesh Patodia ji, please. Kindly unmute yourself. Give applause to CA Ramesh. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And with this, we come to the end of the technical session. And I think tomorrow also we have a session of Salt Lake City Study Circle. So thank you very much, Ramesh ji, once again for coming and sharing your valuable time. Thank you.
সুমন্ত্র
হ্যাঁ, বলুন।
এই যে সিএ অ্যাসোসিয়েশন হচ্ছে এটা নিয়ে